Now that the preparations are done, it is time to get started on your workpiece. All the measurements must be taken from either face side or face edge. Measure and mark the points on the back leg for the tapering bend on the backrest. Use a steel ruler and pencil to draw taper lines from both the width points. Once the layout has been marked, secure the piece to the bench vise and start cutting with a saw. Ensure that you cut along the waist side of the wood, staying within the scored lines. Loosen the vise and swap the side and cut out all the waste wood from the piece as marked in the layout. Support the piece to the bench top and smoothen the surface with a bench plane or smoothing plane. Clean out the piece until they are smooth and flat. Ensure the squareness of the piece with a tri-square on regular intervals. Clean the work area of the wooden shaves left behind. Now, with a spoke shave, give the curvy shape to bend on the center part of the back leg. Similarly, mark the layout for the other legs, framing pieces and support rails, and prepare them according to the dimensions mentioned in the table. After you are done with cutting the parts to size, you need to carve out the mortise and tenon joints for joining them together. Measure and mark the points where your backrest, framing pieces and support rails would join. Adjust the mortise gauge and scribe 2 lines for the mortise groove on the back leg, leaving a 12 mm gap from the top edge on the inner side for the backrest. Then, leaving a gap of 70 mm from the bottom, mark 1 mortise groove on the front face for the bottom rail. Similarly, mark 2 mortise grooves on the front face and side face at the center of the leg for the framing pieces. Secure the back leg to the workbench with a G-clamp. Remember to place a piece of scrap wood in between the clamp jaw to avoid marring on the workpiece. Now with a mortise chisel and wooden mallet, chisel out a mortise. Remember to keep the mortise edges inside the depth clean and sharp, as the tenon will not be a perfect fit if the edges are rough. Use the same process for carving out all the mortises on the other side as well. and you are ready with the back leg with the mortise grooves. Similarly, repeat the same process for carving out all the mortises on the other back leg piece as well as the two front legs. When you are ready with the mortise groove, you need to work on the tenons. Now take one framing piece, measure and mark the points for the length of the tenon on both the edges. With the tri-square, draw a shoulder line all around the piece. This will determine the length of the tenon. Now adjust the mortise gauge and scribe a parallel line all around the edges for the thickness of the tenon. After marking, secure the member to the workbench and cut out the tenon with a saw. Reset the piece on the clamp and cut from the other edge on both the sides. With a chisel, clean out the remaining wastewood from the edges. Remember to keep the tenon edges clean and sharp, as it will not fit perfectly into the mortise if the edges are rough. In the same way, carve out tenons on all the framing pieces, bottom rails and the backrest panels. Test fit the tenon and the mortise joints in all the wood pieces to ensure that you have a perfect fit. If required, cut the tenons to size as needed. For the framing pieces, you need to give a miter cut at the end of the tenon. Ensure that they fit flush when fixed without obstructing the other. Now you are ready with all the parts to size to construct a basic chair.